On November 30th, the National Assembly, the lower house of the French Parliament, debated draft resolution against Azerbaijan. The draft's author called for the French government to collaborate with the EU and the United States in the preparation of a peace treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia in the one-article resolution. The resolution also contains information that will not benefit the negotiation process between Armenia and Azerbaijan. In general, France is increasingly demonstrating its pro-Armenian and anti-Azerbaijani position, discrediting itself as a possible mediator in the negotiation process. Let's talk about this in more details. My guest now is Neil Watson, British journalist. Hello, Neil, and welcome to our program.
Hello there, and thank you for inviting me to speak to you today.
Thank you so much. We know that on November 28th, the Azerbaijani community living in Europe held a peaceful protest near the French National Assembly in response to the discussion of the resolution against Azerbaijan. You were one of the participants of this peaceful demonstration, peaceful protest. Could you tell us more about this?
Yes, most certainly. So this was organised as a response, as you correctly say, to the ruling by the French Senate, which was vehemently anti-Azerbaijani and pro-Armenian. And there were hundreds of Azerbaijanis and the supporters of human rights from around the world who actually came together in order to make their voices heard. As your viewers are probably aware, this resolution very much says that Azerbaijan is an aggressor. It states that Azerbaijani forces should be removed from Karabakh and the other liberated regions, and it asks for economic sanctions against Azerbaijan, particularly with regard to oil and gas exports, and also the seizure of Azerbaijani assets in Europe. So all this was absolutely incorrect, and we made our voices heard. We read out a number of slogans aimed very much at the French Senate to try and get them to become neutral in this matter, to actually understand Azerbaijan's ruling according to international law, that it actually reclaimed its territories, thereby upholding international law. And it was a very, very good protest. I would estimate it lasted round about 3 hours, and there were several hundred people there. But then, of course, as of yesterday, we actually saw this being seconded by the lower house of the French government, and this is deplorable. It shows that France is no longer actually a completely unbiased participant in this, and the fact that a while ago we actually saw both the French and United States ambassadors refuse to attend a peace conference in Shusha is indicative that all of them are very much either standing on the fence or very much coming down on the Armenian side, and possibly are hoping for some kind of resurrection of the OAC Minsk group, which of course achieved absolutely nothing during the course of 28 years. So yes, it
Neil,
was good that we
let
made
me
our
ask you
voices
one more
heard.
question. You know,
Yes.
It's quite clear that the position of the Armenian lobby in France, in the United States and many other countries are quite strong. But to what extent does the French Parliament understand clearly the situation in the South Caucasus when they initiate and adopt such kind of resolutions?
I don't think they actually understand it at all. I don't think they're thinking about the South Caucasus specifically. They are thinking about the sizable Franco Armenian diaspora that's been living in France, and particularly in Paris, for over a century. And they are thinking about the fact that the Franco-Armenians are very powerful economically. There are a number of Franco-Armenian MPs and deputies in the French Parliament. They're thinking about things at home. They're not thinking about the bigger picture. In fact, if they thought about the bigger picture more evenly, they would realize that actually placing sanctions against Azerbaijan with its oil and gas deposits actually works against the interests of Europe and France as well, because it means that obviously we all know that Azerbaijan represents a diverse supply of hydrocarbons for Southeast Europe, and actually placing sanctions against that would actually work in Russia's favour. So they're not thinking about the bigger picture further than outside French territory.
Well, in the resolution, the lawmakers invite the French government to work within the United Nations organization with a view to deploying an international force in the region. Russian peacekeepers in the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan, the EU humanitarian mission in Armenia on the border with Azerbaijan, and now Yerevan is interested in deployment of the United Nations international force. It seems that Armenia is doing everything possible to delay the moment of signing peace deal with Azerbaijan.
That's absolutely correct. I think they're trying to be obstreperous as possible. They are hoping that Russia is going to come very much more down on their side going forward, and that it will actually support it in reclaiming the territory which Azerbaijan regained 2 years ago. I think that's the situation. They're just trying to delay it as much as possible. Plus, the whole of the Armenian diaspora around Europe still very much supports the occupation of Azerbaijani territories. And of course, we have Pashinyan himself, who has problems at home because many of the opposition in Armenia actually are very much against the peace process. So we are seeing lots and lots of attempts here to try and get both Russia and indeed Iran back on the Armenian side.
Among the points made in that biased resolution towards Azerbaijan, it also invites the government to increase France's support for the Republic of Armenia, particularly with regard to humanitarian aid, and to study the strengthening of its defense capacities. It turns out that the Armenian diaspora, which stands behind this resolution, wants more money and weapons for Armenia.
Yes, I mean, this is deplorable, and it's actually against a number of treaties that were signed at the end of the First Karabakh War, that no European state should actually assist either side, in fact, militarily. So if this actually comes to pass, again, it shows that France is certainly not a neutral country in these negotiations. And it's very, very worrying because we've seen, obviously, the fact that Russia can no longer be a participant in any kind of peace conference or peace treaty process at the moment. The EU has taken the upper hand in this, and quite correctly so. But then France is a very integral part, a very major part of the EU. So it could actually put the whole EU-mandated peace process into some kind of jeopardy.
But we know that the economic situation in some European countries, including France, is not the best now. And in this difficult time, some members of the French Parliament are trying to attract financial support from the government to Armenia.
Absolutely. And it's all about, fundamentally, it's about buying Franco Armenian votes, from my perspective. It's to try to make sure that the Franco Armenians in the next election actually vote in favor of Macron and the various deputies that they have in their region. They are not thinking about the bigger picture, even not really thinking about their country particularly, but it's just about attracting votes from that sector of the population.
But what do you think? It's really important to understand that this resolution will not change the real fact that Karabakh East Azerbaijan is being recognized at the highest level by all international community. And what's really interesting, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of France said after the adoption of this resolution by the parliament that this resolution, this document, does not reflect the official line of Paris. What does it mean?
That's correct. I mean, the fact is that these motions actually have no legal standing whatsoever, and certainly will not be able to, as she said, they do not reflect the opinion of the French government. But they do indicate very, very firmly that France is not a neutral player in this. And I think that very, very few French MPs or deputies would be outspoken enough to actually vehemently support Azerbaijan at this precise moment in time, because they know that they would lose a sizable amount of the votes. So I think it's tainted France irrevocably. I mean, I certainly think that France's participation in the OAS Minsk Group and other negotiation processes over the last 30 years held things back. I think there's a risk of this happening again.
Do you think it somehow may affect the position of the President of French government, Emmanuel Macron, and his intention to participate in the negotiation process between Armenia and Azerbaijan in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, as we saw, there were going to be some negotiations later this month, and then Pashinyan actually stated that he wanted Macron to attend that, so it would be actually a quadripartite conversation that took place, dialogue that took place.
Yeah, but we know that the Azerbaijani side declines the meeting
absolutely.
with the participation of President Macron.
Absolutely, because he knew what position that he would have. He knew that he would actually not remain a neutral player in this and actually assist the peace process one little bit.
Neil, but we know that Brussels itself is very much interested to continue to be as a platform for two sides to continue the negotiations. I mean, the Armenia and Azerbaijan in Brussels, they have been already held 3 meetings, and the last one was cancelled because of the condition proposed by the Armenian side with the participation of Emmanuel Macron. Do you think that Brussels itself may react on this, as such kind of situation may destabilize all of that process and achievement which had been achieved within the last year?
Yes, I think so. I think that Charles Michel actually has made great strivings to try and get the peace process on the way and get things resolved, both obviously for the South Caucasus, but also to maintain the energy supply going forward to Southeast Europe. So I think that he will not want to see any part of the EU actually holding back that peace process or putting it to any kind of jeopardy. It actually puts him in a very difficult position because, as I said before, France is a major country within the EU. You know, it's just very, very important that he actually makes France feel included, but also makes it realise that it cannot afford, it cannot be a biased participant in these talks going forward. And if it hasn't got anything positive to do towards getting a negotiation peace, it should just remain quiet.
What about this last process, coming back to this question? It seemed that the Azerbaijanis from many European countries united together against this resolution to be adopted by the parliament in France. So for the future, do you think that such kind of process may be held once again or many times?
I do. I think that this particular protest was organised with very, very few days' notice. And yet we saw hundreds of Azerbaijanis attending, making their voices heard, speaking, chanting, singing, actually delivering messages to the French Senate as it was at that point. So I think in the future, if things do not change in France particularly, we will see a lot more protests taking place. I was very relieved when I was there that we did not see any violence from the Franco Armenian side, who are known to be volatile. I've personally seen their volatility in the past. But I think that we have a situation where we're seeing the peace process and the issues around that very much coming to Paris. Paris is the fulcrum, and Paris is where things will be decided in the future, I think.
Don't you think that the position of French government somehow affect also the violates the international law? Because in the French parliament, the members of parliament are talking about Karabakh region of Azerbaijan and protection of the rights of ethnic Armenians who are living there. And at the same time, at the official level, France recognized the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. It means that these people violate the norms of the international law.
Absolutely. I mean, we are seeing a tremendous dichotomy here. And indeed, this issue about the rights of the Karabakhi Armenians is always being brought up by Pashinyan, despite the fact that in numerous occasions, I cannot count how many occasions, President Aliyev has actually stated that the rights and privileges of the Karabakhi Armenians will be very much preserved. They will be allowed to stay where they are. They just have to accept Azerbaijani territorial integrity and take on Azerbaijani citizenship, which is not a problem because we have many ethnicities actually living in Azerbaijan. So I think that we are seeing very much, as I say, a dichotomy here between what is being said to try and garner political favour from the Franco-Armenian community, but also the fact that, of course, France has to respect international law. And it's also saying that it's doing that. And we have to find some way of coalescing these, actually bringing them together and get the sides to actually understand what the reality is on the ground and where the propaganda, in fact, is coming from.
Neil, thank you so much for joining our program today. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the chance to speak to you, Anastasia. Good luck with your new program.
Thank you. My guest now was Neil Watson, British journalist.